Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And of course we've added the Brhad Bhagavatamrta in the same category because my dearest friend Gopiparanadhana Prabhu was so loyal to Srila Prabhupada and so in line with the Guru Parampara. And Prabhupada said we must read this book in its purports. So we're categorizing this Brhad Bhagavatamrta as in the same category as Prabhupada's books. Right here in the live studios, here we are in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just a stone's throw. Well, you have to throw it a few times to get to the English Channel, but it's there in the horizon. We hope you're all well and safe and happy in all regards, and we're going to read the Srimad-Bhagavatam Stotram together first, which is Sanatana Goswami's glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Beautiful rendition. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabho Kali Dvandoditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of the Supreme Lord's devotees, O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varchakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who were supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Mannistadaga Madbhagya Mad Anandana Mostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. The sadhu, sadhuta dayin, atini chochata kada, hanamun jagada chinmam, premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we've reached the second chapter of the second part of Brhad Bhagavatamrta, following Gopakumar's journey back home, back to Godhead. He got the special mercy of his spiritual master, who later on we'll find out is actually Krishna himself. So he has special powers, and whatever he desires when he's chanting his mantra, by the mercy of Krishna, is happening. And in this way, even though he's only a 10 or 12-year-old young boy from Govardhan, he's getting his education in a unique way by traveling all over. Now he's arrived in Swagaloka, the heavenly planets. And he was on the way, he went back to Vraja, and because he couldn't see Krishna physically, he came from Jagannath Puri. So he decided to go back to Jagannath Puri. And on his way, he met these devotees who were explaining to him about the heavenly planets and different things that he hadn't heard before. So he got fired up to go to the heavenly planet, so he chanted his mantra, and here he is. And he's been made by a fluke of fate. He's been put on the King Indra's seat, because King Indra made some error, made an offense, and had to hide for some time. This is the heavenly planet. You don't want to go there. Same things are happening there as happening here. All kinds of predicaments, upheavals in the material world. They're everywhere. So now he's just arrived, and we're going to begin with text 37. Gopakumara is speaking. With amazement, I looked on as all the demigods and celestial sages, and even their spiritual master, and Lord Vishnu himself, worshipped those sages reverently. Commentary. The chief among the sages who offered respect was Narada. He, of course, showed respect to his elder brother, Bhrigu. Lord Vishnu also honored the great sages, headed by Bhrigu, because Lord Vishnu is Brahmanya Deva, the Lord who always serves the Brahmanas. Text 38. I was a new resident of Swarga, my heart distracted by the bliss of serving Lord Vishnu, so I failed to recognize the sages. But at the urging of my companions, I too worshipped them. Commentary. Despite occupying the post of Indra, Gopakumar at first neglected to come forward to worship his venerable guests because he did not know who they were. He wondered whether they were some demigods or devarshis of Swagaloka he had not seen before, or visitors from some other world. Gopakumar explains his own ignorance by calling himself a newcomer. Although he had already been living in Swarga for a year of the demigods, he had been too much absorbed in the joy of devotional service to Lord Vishnu to become interested in learning about anything else. Normally, devotional service bestows knowledge automatically, even upon devotees who are not inquisitive. But Gopakumar's case was special. As Sri Narada will explain at the end of the 5th chapter, Gopakumar, thanks to a special blessing from his spiritual master, remained forever naive about the ways of the world. Text 39. The sages greeted me with auspicious blessings and happily went on their way. And at that moment, Lord Upendra also disappeared. I then inquired from the immortals of heaven. Commentary. Apparently, the sages visiting Mahaloka felt no offense at being neglected by the cowherd Indra, since they happily offered him their blessings. But they moved on, and at the same time, Lord Vamana also disappeared. This was necessary for Gopakumar's benefit. In front of the Lord, he would have been unable to inquire about the sages, for in the Lord's presence, devotional etiquette forbids conversations that do not involve him. And as long as Lord Vamana was to be seen, Gopakumar, distracted by ecstasy, would have been unable to think about leaving Swagaloka. Text 40. The demigods are worshipped by men, but who were those persons worshipped even by the demigods? What makes them so great? Where do those effulgent persons live? Commentary. Gopakumar knew from his limited experience that a father, though honored by his sons, still honors his own father. Thus he surmised that there must be some natural reason for the sages to be treated as superiors. Simply from their glowing appearance, he could understand that they must have come from somewhere above Swagaloka. He wondered where they came from and whom they worshipped. He became curious to visit that place and to see their Lord. Text 41. Jealous and proud, the demigods were embarrassed to tell me, but our Guru then spoke. Commentary. Matsara, jealousy, means intolerance of another person's excellence. The demigods were jealous of the great sages and proud of their own positions, and in response to Gopakumar's questions, these two emotions gave rise to embarrassment and silence. The exact words used here are lajjaya, diva, as if ashamed. Because these negative feelings were only a shadow of the gross envy and other such emotions felt on lower planets. The exact words used here are lajjaya, eva, as if ashamed, because these negative feelings were only a shadow of the gross envy and other such emotions felt on lower planets. Brihaspati, however, was more sober than the demigods, and his duty as Gopakumar's guru was to answer the reasonable questions of the disciple. Text 42. Sri Brihaspati said, above this realm shines the world called Mahaloka, attainable through the best of pious works. Even when the three worlds are annihilated, that world is not destroyed. Commentary. As difficult as it is for ordinary mortals to enter heaven, the requirements for entering Mahaloka are even more stringent. An aspirant must complete ritual sacrifices and yoga meditation of a lofty standard, uncorrupted by lower motives. Only then might he be accepted for elevation to Mahaloka, which survives the dissolution of the three worlds, Bur, Bhuvar, and Swar. Because most of the residents of Mahaloka are candidates for liberation, the planet exists as long as that of Lord Brahma. Text 43. As the happiness of Indra is considered millions of times greater than that of a ruler on earth, the happiness of a Prajapati is millions of times greater than Indra's. Commentary. The sages living on Mahaloka are the Prajapatis, the original forefathers of the population of the universe. They are the first authorities on the Vedic path of karma. Text 44. Endowed with such happiness, the Prajapatis live on Mahaloka, enjoying the greatest pleasures and directly worshipping in various places the Lord of Sacrifice, who is there in person as their master. Commentary. The Prajapatis leave Mahaloka only occasionally, when they have a specific reason to visit other planets. For worshipping the Supreme Lord with wonderful sacrifices, the Prajapatis have much better resources than even those available on Swagaloka. Text 45. Sri Gopakumar said, upon hearing this, I at once lost my attachment to the post of Indra and wanted to go see that Supreme Lord being worshipped by the great souls who are worshipped by those who are worshipped. Commentary. Gopakumar had seen that compared to the worship of the Supreme Lord on earth, the worship on Swagaloka is much more charming and opulent. And if Mahaloka is worshipable, by the residents of Swarga, the worship of the Lord on Mahaloka must be still more glorious. To see Lord Vishnu being worshipped on Mahaloka was certainly worth a trip. Text 46. I made this my intention and chanted my mantra, and soon a celestial airplane picked me up, and I found myself transported to Mahaloka. Commentary. Chanting his japa with the conscious desire, I want to see the Lord of Sacrifice on Mahaloka, soon brought Gopakumar to Rishi Brigu's abode on the Mahar planet, where the sages had returned after finishing their short excursion. Text 47. Such happiness, opulence, and worship of the Lord as found nowhere in the three worlds. It's all there perfectly, indescribable in words. Commentary. The residents of Mahaloka never quarrel among themselves, never suffer mundane miseries, and never fear the annihilation of the nightfall of Brahma. On Mahaloka, rivalry and quarrel are non-existent because everyone worships the Supreme Lord without selfish motives, and therefore material assets are always on hand without deficiency or surplus. The conditions of such a subtle, exclusive environment can hardly be described in words. They can be understood only by direct experience. Nonetheless, Srila Sanatana Goswami kindly gives us a rare glimpse into a world we otherwise know little about. Text 48. While the great sages, endowed with pure devotion, offered thousands of grand sacrifices, I saw the Lord of Sacrifice, the Supreme Controller, stand up brilliantly from amidst the fires of oblation and delight in his pastimes as the enjoyer of sacrificial offerings. Commentary. The form of Lord Vishnu, appearing from the sacrificial fires, made an especially vivid impression on Gopakumar's mind. So he briefly describes that form in this and the following two verses. Bhrigu and his brothers are Nishkama Vaishnavas who have no other master than Lord Vishnu. Therefore the Lord reciprocated their worship by appearing in person on the sacrificial altar. He was Spuran, glowing even more brilliantly than the ritual fires. Text 49. That Lord, sacrifice personified, radiant as millions of suns, his mighty form enchanting to the world, reached out his hands, accepted the charu offering, and granted the sacrificers pleasing benedictions. Commentary. This verse paints an even more vivid picture of the Lord of Sacrifice. He is called the Lord of Sacrifice because it is he who through sacrifice receives worship. And the Vedic sacrifices or yagyas, including their physical ingredients and the mantras and rules for their performance, emanate from him. Holding in his hands the implements of sacrifice, including the sruk and sruva ladles, he appears as sacrifice personified. As we find in Srimad-Bhagavatam 3:13, 35 and 36, in the description of the Yagya Varaha, the born incarnation of the Lord, the various parts of the Lord's divine body symbolize all the aspects of Yagya. O Lord, your form is to be worshipped by performance of sacrifice. But souls who are simply miscreants are unable to see that form. All the Vedic hymns Gayatri and others are in the touch of your skin. In your bodily hairs is kusha grass. In your eyes is the clarified butter. And in your 4 legs are the 4 kinds of fruitive acts. O Lord, in your tongue is the sruk, in your nostril the sruva, and in your abdomen the plate for eating. In the holes of your ears is the cup called chamasa. In your mouth is the Brahma plate. In your throat are the soma vessels. And whatever you chew is the oblation to the fire. When Lord Vishnu appears on Mahaloka as Yagyeshwar, all the parts of his body are universally attractive. His head, mouth, neck, chest, arms, legs, and so on. As Gopakumar watched the Lord playfully accepting the offerings of charu, a standard oblation of rice, barley, dal, and butter, mixed and boiled in milk. Not even Lord Vamana on Swagaloka was this attractive. Text 50. With words drenched in compassion, he gave me with his own hand the Mahaprasad of his remnants. Awestruck by the sight of him, out of sheer joy, I felt compelled to bow down. Commentary. Seeing the Lord of Sacrifice made Gopakumar more eager than ever to discover how he could serve the Lord in some personal way. In response to this enthusiasm, Lord Yagyeshwara encouraged him even more by saying such things as, "My dear Gopakumar, please come here and accept my hospitality." Text 51. By that Lord's abundant mercy, I attained an exceptional bliss I had never known before, and all my desires were fulfilled. Commentary. On earth and in heaven, Gopakumar had felt bliss in devotional service, but nothing like what he was relishing on Mahaloka. Now, as never before, he was satisfying his deepest desires to see the Lord of the universe and share personal exchanges with him. Text 52. I wandered here and there in the company of the great compassionate sages, and in every dwelling I saw the Lord of the universe present in the same way. Commentary. No matter where Gopakumar went on Mahaloka, he found everyone performing Vedic sacrifices, and the Lord of Sacrifice appearing in order to eat the offerings. Text 53. Thinking myself fully successful in all respect, I happily took up residence on Mahaloka. Once the great sages spoke to me as follows. Commentary. On Mahaloka, not only was Lord Yagyeshwar visible in every residence, but in each place his features were different. Now that Gopakumar was obtaining to his satisfaction the darshan of the Lord, along with a generous amount of his mercy, Gopakumar felt that his life in general and his mantra japa in particular had reached fruition. Text 54. The great sages said, O son of a cowherd Vaishya, we are offering you the Brahminical status, natural for a resident of this planet. Please, accept it at once. Commentary. Some Vaishyas farm and tend cows, and others do business, but according to the Dharma Shastras, they all belong to a twice-born class. In other words, Vaishyas, along with Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, receive Vedic initiation and education. But in Gopakumar's simple cowherd village. The Vaishyas didn't maintain these Vedic standards, and so he remained illiterate and uninitiated into the Brahma Gayatri. How then, when even a Vaishya, wasn't properly initiated, could he become a Brahmana? It was possible because the powerful sages were offering him that status and emphatically asking him to accept it. They wanted him to change his external dress and behavior to conform with the way of life on Mahaloka. Text 55. Become one of the exalted sages, so that you too may worship with sacrifice this Lord of the universe, who for so long has been the desired goal of your heart. Text 56. Sri Gopakumar said, hearing this, O Brahmana, I thought I would be much happier staying in Vaishya, for then I could keep worshipping both the Supreme Lord and those Brahmanas, his devotees. So he's getting some spiritual intelligence along the way. Oh yeah, training. Commentary. Gopakumar thought, if I become a Brahmana, I will lose the fortune of being a simple servant. Then I will be unable to humbly assist the Brahmana sages. But if I stay a Vaishya to my heart's content, I can keep serving these Vaishnavas and their worshipable Lord, Yagyeshwar. Text 57. For these Brahmanas, I thought, performing sacrifice is the only interest in life. If I were to become one of them, surely I would become lax in the chanting I am duty-bound to continue. My divine Guru taught me to worship this mantra, and besides, I have already seen its good results. Commentary. The 10-syllable Gopal mantra had already proven its efficacy by elevating Gopakumar to the positions of a king on earth, Indra on Sarloka, and a resident of Mahaloka. Text 58. Therefore, while showing respect to the sages, I declined the status of a Brahmana. But I stayed on Mahaloka, enjoying the exalted pleasures that automatically appear in the world of the Prajapatis. Text 59. On Mahaloka, there were no faults, nor was there sorrow, nor apprehensiveness. There was nothing but festivals of sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord of sacrifice. Commentary. On Swagaloka, Gopakumar detected subtle signs of lust, envy, anger, rivalry, and false pride. But on Mahaloka, these faults were non-existent. There was no sorrow from defeat by opponents or from any other cause. There was no fear of the destruction of the world or fear of individual degradation. Without these distractions, the residents of Mahaloka gave themselves fully to worshipping the Supreme Lord with festive Vedic sacrifices. The residents were completely uninterested in mundane sense gratification. Text 60. But at the end of each sacrifice, unhappiness would arise when the Lord disappeared. And when the Lord reappeared at the start of another sacrifice, happiness would begin again. Commentary. At the end of a sacrifice, Lord Yagyeshwar would disappear. But because he was controlled by the love shown by his servants, he would not stay invisible for long. Still, this brief cause of discontent was enough to plant in Gopakumar's heart a seed of desire to find an even better place. Text 61. At the end of 1,000 cycles of ages, for that place 1 day, the conflagration of the three worlds forced us to take refuge on Janaloka, Commentary. Mahaloka exists for the same duration as the planet of Lord Brahma, but because Mahaloka is adjacent to Swarga, its inhabitants are forced to evacuate by the heat created during the fire of annihilation that burns the lower worlds. After Mahaloka, Janaloka is the next higher planetary system. Text 62. On Janaloka, as if it were night time, no sacrifices were being performed, and the pain of not seeing the Lord of Sacrifice burned more greatly than the burning of the three worlds. Commentary. There is no literal night time in self-effulgent Janaloka, but when Brahma goes to sleep along with Lord Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, the lower planets merge into one vast ocean, and throughout the universe, both sacrificial and ordinary activities come to an end. When no sacrifices are performed on the planets of the sages, Lord Yageshwar no longer appears there. And for Gopakumar, the pain of the Lord's absence was worse than the scorching fire of annihilation blasting from the mouth of Lord Sankarshan. Text 63. Then I thought it would be better to go see Lord Jagannath in Sri Purushottam Kshetra, in the shade of the infallible banyan tree. Commentary. Lord Jagannath's abode, Purushottam Kshetra, is protected by the shade of an indestructible banyan tree. Even when earth, sky, and heaven are destroyed, Jagannath Puri remains untouched. Text 64. When I returned to Mahaloka, I chanted my japa in seclusion as before. The chanting made me morose with desire to see again this land of Braja. Commentary. Gopakumar refers to this land of Braja because he is speaking to the Mathura Brahmana in Braja itself. The separation from Lord Yageshwar that Gopakumar suffered during the partial pralaya was relatively short, but his constant remembrance of Brajabhumi more seriously threatened his happiness in Mahaloka. He might have forgotten his urge to go to Lord Jagannath, but not his attraction to Braja, which was much greater. Text 65. But then the Supreme Lord would appear, the object of sacrificial worship, the ocean of mercy. He would call me with love and sportingly eat what I brought before him. 66. He would then dispel all my distress, just as the rising sun drives away darkness. Bound by the one hope of being with him, I could go nowhere else, even at night. Commentary. To be sure, being unable to see Lord Yageshwar at night was painful, but Gopakumar was so absorbed in the thought of the Lord that he was oblivious to that pain. And during the day, he forgot the urge to go elsewhere. Because of the ecstasies of seeing Lord Yageshwar, taking part in the festivals to worship him, and obtaining his abundant mercy, even during Lord Brahma's night, Gopakumar's expectations of soon enjoying this sight, this worship, and this mercy continued, unbroken, binding him with a chain of hopes. Text 67. Once, someone arrived from a higher planet, his form surrounded by brilliant light. He was dressed by the directions only. He appeared to be a 5 or 6-year-old boy. Commentary. Since the residents of Mahaloka frequently travel to Janaloka, the two planets are practically a single system. The one difference between them is that on Janaloka, the fire of annihilation from below is far enough away that there is no need to flee. Gopakumar knew all this from experience. The next world for him to see was Tapaloka, so now he is being introduced to its greatness. Since up to this point in his narrative, Gopakumar had never heard of Tapaloka, here he refers to it as a higher planet. The unknown person who suddenly arrived from the higher regions looked like a small child and was naked. To go naked is normal for 5-year-old children, at least in the natural Vedic culture. Text 68. The great sages put aside their sacrificial rituals, stood up with devotion, bowed down to the boy who was absorbed in meditation, and worshipped him as if he were the Lord of sacrifice himself. Commentary. Brighu and the others honored the little boy who remained silent. Text 69. After that person, as it pleased him, went away, I inquired from the Maharshis, who was that, and where did he come from? Why is it that you great souls worshipped him? Commentary. The boy was so exalted that no force could impede him from going wherever he wanted. By his own sweet will, he left as suddenly as he had come. Seeing this puzzled Gopakumar. The sages of Mahaloka were worshipable for the demigods. Living in a realm above all creatures, the sages enjoyed worshipping the Lord of sacrifice in person. Who other than the Lord could command their respect? And why had they interrupted their sacrifices to honor that visitor? Text 7. The Maharshis said, that person is Sanat Kumara, the eldest among us and the greatest. He is the first preceptor of the self-controlled, self-contented sages, whose desires are always fulfilled, and he is a lifelong celibate. Commentary. The chief residents of Mahaloka are sons of Brahma, and Sanat Kumara is their brother, the eldest of Brahma's sons. He is better than the other sages because, unlike most of them, he never entered family life, even on Brahma's request. This answers the question, who was that? Text 71. He lives in the world above ours, called Tapaloka, with his 3 brothers and with other great mystics who, like him, are masters of yoga. Commentary. Here the sages answer the question, where did he come from? He is not the only one of his kind, for he has 3 brothers, just as great as he, Sanaka, Sananda, and Sanatana. These 4 brothers live on Tapaloka, along with other great mystics, including Kavi, Havis, Antariksha, Prabhupada, and Pipalayana. Text 72. That world is attainable only by unbroken celibacy. Its residents, their semen retained flowing upward, feel a constant peace and happiness millions of times greater than enjoyed by the progenitors of the universe. Commentary. Brihad is the great vow of lifelong restraint from sex. One may begin observing celibacy after years of indulgence, or one may practice strict celibacy as a brahmachari for the years of one's studies, and then enter regulated married life. Both kinds of celibacy are very beneficial, but only the rare person with exceptional determination to refrain from all forms of sex for his entire life is allowed to become a resident of Tapo-loka. Life on Tapo-loka is all auspicious. There is no trouble from the heat of periodic annihilations, and no need to migrate to a higher region. On Tapo-loka, the cataclysms of the annihilation of the three worlds go unnoticed. The Yogeshwaras on Tapo-loka enjoy undisturbed peace and satisfaction. Text 73. Especially for householders like us, that person is worthy of worship as much as the Lord of Sacrifice himself, for he has renounced all material duties. Commentary. Here the sages answer the question, why did you great souls worship him? Sanat Kumara is honored throughout the universe because he is a direct representative of the personality of Godhead. Learned authorities consider him an empowered incarnation of the Lord, and he is also a preeminent Vaishnava. The Prajapatis of Mahaloka especially revered him because he was their honored guest and a renounced brahmachari. The position of one who adheres to strict celibacy is generally considered superior to that of grihastas. But as the word Eva in this verse implies, the sages of Mahaloka are not ordinary householders. They have very little attachment to home, property, or other material things. Text 74. Sri Gopakumar said, "Then I wondered, indeed, what kind of happiness do they enjoy on Tapo-loka? How many more are there like him? And what kind of Lord do they worship?" Commentary. Hearing the answers of the sages was enough to inspire Gopakumar to go to Tapo-loka. Even though his main interest in life was to see the Lord of the universe, he did not consider such a journey inappropriate. He reasoned that if this wonderful person and the others on his planet like him possess opulences like those of God, whatever form of God they worship must be even more wonderful and opulent than they. Text 75. Eager to see all those persons for myself, I chanted my mantra with fixed attention. Thus gaining great potency, I quickly traveled to that world. Commentary. Gopakumar wanted to see Sanat and his brothers on their own planet and see their worshipable Lord. He focused his mind intensely on this single aim, turning his attention inward in imitation of Sanat Kumar, whom he had seen absorbed in deep meditation. By the power of the mantra, he soon became infused with the same subtle strength as the Kumara brothers and was quickly able to rise to their exalted planet. And that's exactly 8 o'clock. Hare Krishna. We'll stop our reading for tonight, and tomorrow we will journey with Gopakumar to Tapo-loka. Hare Krishna. So if we have any reflections or comments or discussions, please be our guest.
This is from Brhad Bhagavatam.
Hey, Brudge, first out of the blocks.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
First off the blocks.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It seems, based on the reading yesterday and your comment earlier, that devotional service is not prominent in the heavenly planets. Why is this? Don't the residents get tired of enjoying and watch something else? I mean, the same cycle of enjoying that ends here is also there, yes?
It is, but it's more subtle. And I mean, when we saw Gopakumar in Swagaloka, it wasn't that the Lord wasn't there. He was there in the form of Vamanadev. And he watched Indra worshipping him. And even when Indra had to go, hide from his offense, then he was able to interact with Vamanadev. So it's not that there isn't devotional service going on there. There is. It's just of a little different nature. And we're learning about this as we go to higher and higher realms. The nature of the service changes. But as we heard Gopakumar talk about Swarga from Mahaloka and Janaloka, there still are, quarrels and envy and jealousy and all these kinds of things, and dangers from the demons. But in these higher planets, those kinds of things don't exist. So therefore, the worship is a higher nature, a different nature. Because the Lord is always reciprocating with his devotees according to the way that they approach him. Yayatam mam prabhajante tam sataiva bhajamiham. Yes. However we approach Krishna, he reciprocates with us accordingly. So you see the differences. They're all the different forms of the Lord in different moods with different types of worship. They're all going on as a part of a system that is there in the Vedas, in the Vedic culture. Because the Vedas contain the codes of knowledge that enabled the universe to be created and maintained. And destroyed, as we also heard. The planetary systems are periodically destroyed at the end of Brahma's day. Hare Krishna.
From Sudevi Dasi, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Without you, I would have never read the entire Srimad-Bhagavatam, CC, and now this Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Your enthusiasm makes it so exciting. What nectar each day.
Yes, it is nectar. That's a fact. We're blessed. We're very happy that you feel like that. And if I can just be some participant in the distribution of these literatures, that's what my life is for now, completely.
From Saloni Sachi Sundari. Saloni Sachi.
Saloni Sachi Sundari.
Yes.
Saloni Sachi Sundari. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to your devotional service. From Radha Madan Mohan, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and your transcendental daily readings of Sri-Bhagavatam, Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta. Maharaj, happy Shiva Ratri to you all.
Hare Krishna.
From Rati, Jai Guru Maharaj, saving my day once again.
Hare Krishna, Rati.
This is from Anadi Kishore. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for tonight's reading this morning for myself in New Zealand. In text 41, Sanatana Goswami explains that the negative feelings on Indraloka were only a shadow of the gross envy and other such emotions felt on lower planets. This is interesting, but I can't help but wonder about the sum of the actions and mistakes we hear of made by Indra. They seem somewhat more extreme than mere shadows.
No, they're shadows because they're more subtle. Their bodies are more subtle. there are different laws of nature. Their sexual, proclivities are not condemned while they're there, except under very rare circumstances. So the kinds of discrepancies that Gopakumar saw in the higher planetary systems and in Swagaloka were less severe, less serious. They result in less, gross suffering. And finally, when they got to Janaloka, there's no suffering practically. The only feelings of suffering on those higher planets are the feeling of compassion for those living on the earthly planets and the middle planet and lower planetary systems, where they do experience, birth, death, and old disease, like in rapid succession. From their perspective, when they look down at the earthly planet and below, they just see us dying like every minute, because so many years go by, in one day, in those planets, and so many years go by in one day of the earthly planet. So from their perspective, they see, constant death. Therefore, it's called Mahaloka, Lord of Death. Just like Prabhupada used the example that, when a place has a very special characteristics, like there's some places where sandalwood trees grow very, luxuriantly and in great numbers and great quality. They call it, Malaya Hills, because there's always, everywhere you go, there's sandalwood trees. So like that, in the lower planetary systems, there's so much death is going on so quickly. Life is so short compared to the higher planetary systems. They call it Mahaloka. So then you might ask, well, then why the demigods are asking to take a birth on the earth? Yes, that's because the earth is in the middle, and you can see the difference between, the different discrepancies more clearly, and it's the place where you go back to the spiritual world from.
From Rati Manjari, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances. What I find fascinating about this book is that the Vedic descriptions about the universe so come to life in the journey of Gopakumar.
Yes. I remember when Gopiparanadhana Prabhu asked me to edit this book, become his editor. Of course, I wasn't capable of editing this book. He saw in me something I didn't see in myself. But he wanted, because of our friendship and our working relationship, it was very, very nice. And he knew that I could be trained. So, but one thing in order to convince me, because at first I thought, not me, I can't do this. And he said, look, you just edit this book and you'll learn everything. Things you can't imagine that there are to know, you'll learn them. And now I can see, wherever we go and read this book, people are amazed at the details about the different planetary systems and the life there and the persons there and their exchanges and their aspirations, so many things.
From Rati Manjari again. What I'm noticing when you read about Gopakumar and his chanting of this mantra is that the mantra seems to be like a vehicle who carries him to different places and who delivers fruits like results, which fulfills his desires. In regard to our chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, I was mostly told to simply chant the name and try to hear the name. I was wondering whether in our chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, is it appropriate for us to consider our chanting in the terms it is talked about in this scripture?
No, we should follow Prabhupada. Prabhupada is our Acharya, our founder Acharya, and he teaches us what the proper Sankalpa is. He teaches us what the Hare Krishna mantra is the most elevated mantra in the Vedic scriptures. Therefore it's called the Maha Mantra. right? And in this age, there's no way you can make spiritual advancement. What to speak of go back to the Godhead, except through chanting this mantra. So therefore, we should not become distracted or waylaid into wanting to go to these places. This is one of the reasons why we hear about this, so we can satisfy our desire of what it's like. So we will continue to move on, like Gopakumar did. He continued to move on wherever he went. There was something about the place that didn't quite satisfy him. He didn't even want to take the dress and the appearance and the mentality of a Brahmana in Mahaloka, because it didn't satisfy him. He wanted to be able to be a humble servant. He wanted to serve the Brahmanas. Became a Brahmana, he'll be taking so much service, he wouldn't be able to serve. Because that's the nature of a pure Vaishnava, especially one from Krishna Loka. So that's the reason why we don't need to have any other sankalpa except to receive the mercy of the holy name and the mercy of our spiritual masters and Lord Chaitanya and his associates, to be able to return back to Goloka Vrindavan. As we will find out as this book unfolds, how it is the highest place to live. Gopakumar is already attained that position, but it's a special situation. You'd think, he should know everything because this is the mercy of his spiritual master. He's growing up while he's traveling through all these distant places and learning all about these different things firsthand, rather than just reading it from a book. He's illiterate. He's an illiterate young boy from Govardhan, cowherd boy. So our sankalpa should be for the mercy of Krishna to awaken our pure love for Krishna, so that we can actually render loving, transcendental loving service to Krishna, because that pleases him the most. That's our sankalpa. And anything else is a distraction. And that is Lord Chaitanya's mercy, to elevate us, unqualified people, to the highest states of spiritual perfection. Hare Krishna.
From Brhad Bhagavatamrta, Maharaja feel like going to the heavenly planet is just is just more of the same, but a more intense sense of enjoyment level. How can we ensure we don't get punished by being sent there?
It's the same answer. It's the same answer to all these kinds of questions. You have to get an attachment for Krishna, an attachment for the Supreme Personality of God, the original form of Krishna. And that's what Gopakumar has. His mantra is worshipping Madan Gopal. But he didn't know about all these different places. He didn't know about all the different forms of the Lord and how the devotees are worshipping. So he's getting his complete spiritual education firsthand by traveling, rather than studying the Bhagavatam or hearing the Bhagavatam. So how to avoid getting attracted to Swagaloka? Well, you have to give up all material desires. If you give up material desires and chant Hare Krishna, then your sankalpa of wanting to be with Krishna and serve Lord Chaitanya and help others come to Krishna consciousness will be fulfilled. Hare Krishna. I thank you all very much. It's right on time too. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Sri Brhad Bhagavatamrta ki jai. Sama Beda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. We'll see you tomorrow night. Same place, same time, same topic. The creme de la creme. De la creme, de la creme, de la creme, de la creme. De la creme, de la creme. De la creme, de la creme, de la creme, de la creme. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.